On January 13th, 2020, LSU made headlines, both for winning a national championship and for sparking a nationwide debate about ethics in college sports. Because of an incident that happened that night, we were once again reminded that under current NCAA guidelines, college athletes have very few ways to earn money while still in school. They are currently unable to profit off of their names and their talents. However, this regulation should absolutely be lifted because many college athletes are left unable to support themselves while the NCAA and the university use them for financial gain. By using sources like the Washington Post, Forbes, and the National Collegiate Athletic Association's own handbook, I feel as though I am fully prepared to argue my beliefs. Today, I will be discussing how the NCAA's restrictive rules are unfair to college athletes and how many people other than the athlete are benefiting. Both myself and Gary Parrish of CBS Sports agree that athletes being able to pursue financial ventures on their own is extremely fair. Athletes cannot accept any remuneration for or permit the use of his or her name or image to advertise, recommend, or promote directly the sale or use of a commercial product or service of any kind. College athletes should be able to obtain endorsements from brands. Their names and their images belong to them, and it was their talent and their abilities that got them to this level in the first place. Also, rather than the school at which they play getting to use them to make money, it makes so much more sense for the athlete to be the one to determine who profits off of their likenesses. This idea could also encourage athletes to stay in school longer. As Forbes' Mark Edelman puts it, if elite college athletes are able to earn money by licensing their name, images, and likenesses, they may no longer feel as compelled to leave college to support themselves and their families. Graduation rates among athletes and in general throughout the school would then increase. Therefore, more people would be sent into the world with a college degree that they could use to fall back on if needed. Though some athletes do receive scholarships to pay for living expenses related to school, they have no feasible way to make money to pay for any other expenses that arise. Sports are practically a full-time job for many athletes. Lynn O'Shaughnessy of CBS News states that athletes in most sports devote anywhere from 28 to 43 hours per week to their sport. Academics are also a huge time commitment, as any college student knows very well. CBS News reported in the aforementioned article that athletes spend an average of 30 hours a week on academics. Thus, when adding in the hours of school and homework that are required to maintain eligibility, it's completely impractical to even try to add a job onto these other commitments as well. Being unable to support themselves with a job poses more problems for some athletes more so than others, because many athletes do not receive full rides to their school. CBS News reports that the average scholarship is less than $11,000. Furthermore, according to the NCAA, only about 2% of high school athletes are awarded athletic scholarships to compete in college. The Washington Post Armstrong Williams also states that 86% of college athletes live below the poverty line. This means that athletes and their families are responsible for coming up with the remaining cost of attendance and the living expenses, which can be extremely difficult without a guaranteed way to make money. Allowing athletes to have this kind of autonomy is extremely practical, beneficial, and would be the most reasonable and fair solution to the current argument for all parties involved, according to Parrish, who I mentioned earlier. He makes the claim that this system wouldn't cost the NCAA or its member institutions a penny, which has historically been the main point of contention for this idea. Many colleges do not have the funds readily available to pay their athletes for their participation, especially smaller schools. This is why it makes so much more sense for a company that has the resources and the money to spend to pay the athlete for their name. If an athlete from a school was to sign a deal with a certain brand, this could bring more endorsements, more attention, and more recruitment opportunities to the school. The amount of money that is made off of these athletes every year is astronomical. And it really puts into perspective how unfair of a deal these athletes are currently being given. In 2017, the NCAA grossed $1 billion, and this number has continued to grow every year since. To reiterate how much money some schools are making, let's take March Madness for example. It is one of the biggest spectacles in sports every year. In 2016, the NCAA signed an extension with CBS and Turner Broadcasting for the rights to televise March Madness every year until 2032. CNN reported that this deal was worth about $8.8 billion. In conclusion, I think that CBS Sports' Gary Parrish said it best. If some company wants to make a student athlete an endorser and the student athlete wants to do it, let them do it. Colleges make an enormous amount of money off of these young adults every year, while some of them are struggling to survive each day. It is these athletes' futures that are being decided for them, and I do not think that it's a radical or an unreasonable idea to give them more of a say in their future.